1 billion spent in the last 3 years. 6 managers have come and left. The largest squad assembled in world football, all just to become worse than before. Chelsea's financial experiment has gone rogue. This is how to ruin a club. Ever since Bluco took over Chelsea 3 seasons ago, their plan has always been to buy potential and tie it to long-term contracts. Every top-rated youngster is either in Chelsea's roster or is promised to Chelsea via pre-agreed terms. On paper, this idea is genius. Get the next Hazard or Lampard while the value is still low. Use your world-class youth and training facilities to grow your superstars. Don't buy your Galacticos, just make them. So Chelsea ran wild, spending £1 billion chasing the next big thing. They signed over 20 prospects in 3 years. But Chelsea's approach is flawed. In the 3 years that Chelsea have run this youth-first strategy, they have fired 5 managers. The young players are not getting any real guidance if the coaches move every 8 months. Coaches like Maurizio Pochettino and Enzo Maresca, who are elite in youth management, keep getting fired. For managers like Pochettino and Maresca, they left due to the aggressive recruitment policy. Maresca needed investment in defense. He got strikers and midfielders. Pochettino asked for a bit of experience, and instead, another wave of youngsters was added. The disconnect between the board and its managers could not be clearer. Managers in Chelsea are fired for wanting the best for the club, fired for winning trophies, without any kind of guidance, consistency, or identity. The development of talent in Chelsea is stalling. This problem leads us to the stockpiling of players. Chelsea's strategy brought them a collection of fancy toys that they can't really play with. A squad of 40-plus elite players scrambling for game time. With big transfers in key positions, Chelsea have locked themselves in a vicious cycle. They buy a world-class player as a starter for over 90 million, sign a backup for 50 million, buy yet another good player for the same position, and tie all of them to 8-year contracts. This is criminal. An example of this was with Mudryk and Sterling. Both were decent players who played from the left. Sterling was on big wages, and Mudryk was an £80 million signing. It never really worked out, and Chelsea had to write them off. Both players did not play for extended periods of time. Chelsea had to take on a loss of close to £120 million on 2 players alone. That is without counting all the transfers that haven't worked out due to other factors such as injuries. When the owners at Chelsea bought French club Strasbourg in 2023, many of its fans were cautiously optimistic. On one hand, they were getting access to much-needed capital, but on the other, they would always come second to the club in London. With Chelsea's money, you would think that Strasbourg would finally make a resurgence. It ain't happening anytime soon. So far, Strasbourg has been a holding bay for Chelsea's mistakes or distressed assets. Out-of-favor players from the Chelsea squad are shipped to Strasbourg. This helps Chelsea offload millions in wages from their books and remain compliant with the regulations. As if that was not enough, Chelsea cannibalizes Strasbourg at every given chance. Striker Emmanuel Emega is set to join Chelsea. Strasbourg key man in attack and their captain is already being shipped to Chelsea, who have João Pedro, Liam Delap, Mark Guiu, and Nicholas Jackson, who will be back from his loan. Top-rated midfielder Valentin Bako from Strasbourg is Chelsea-bound. Bako will be competing with the likes of Cole Palmer and Enzo Fernandez. Chelsea is spoiled for choice, while Strasbourg keeps losing their best players. This system is essentially a conveyor belt. Strasbourg ships out its finished products to Stamford Bridge, while Chelsea only ever sends raw materials or damaged goods back. Strasbourg fans will never get the chance to connect with any of their players if they all are set for a move to London. The most recent cycle has involved manager Liam Rosignol, who left mid-season to go help rescue Chelsea. Strasbourg got a replacement in Gary O'Neill, but fans are worried that their team will only be a holding bay for Chelsea without ever furthering their own ambitions. The negative impact of this conveyor belt is not only on the club and the fans, but also on players. The example of young defender Aaron Anselmino. Chelsea bought him, then loaned him out to Dortmund. Anselmino was doing well in Germany. But when Chelsea had an injury crisis, they decided to play smart. Chelsea took defender Mamadou Sarr from Strasbourg and offered Anselmino as a sort of replacement. To the Chelsea board, young players have become a means to an end, only valuable if they help Blueco advance its interests. In reality, Chelsea is a loss-making venture. No club is liquid enough to support a 1.6 billion transfer gamble. Unlike their competitors, Chelsea can't fall back on matchday revenue. The Stamford Bridge is nowhere as big as the Emirates or Anfield. As a result, Chelsea have had to resort to smart accounting and financial loopholes just to balance their books. The loaning of players to Strasbourg can only shed a few millions from the expenditure. Chelsea needed to write off hundreds of millions in debt without getting into trouble. Their solution? They sold their own hotels to themselves for £76.5 million. The women's team was sold to one of Blueco's subsidiaries for £200 million. Just 2 transactions later, and Chelsea on the books were massively profitable. The only issue with the American owners is that they won't swallow any of Chelsea's bad debt. Previous owner Abramovich took on personal losses of close to £1.5 billion, just so Chelsea will be debt-free and profitable. The difference was that Abramovich actually cared and loved the club. Boehly, on the other hand, is only after profit. The new owners want to prop Chelsea up to an evaluation of $10 billion and sell it to another equity fund. Blueco would then profit over $5 billion plus and call it a day, leaving the fans and Chelsea as a whole to fend for itself. Now, this is a mess in every way, but football fans know that there was a period in time where Chelsea was the best run club in England and only second best in Europe behind Madrid. For 19 years, Chelsea had a godfather in Abramovich. The man single-handedly built Chelsea from scratch, pouring in billions to strengthen the club. When he was in charge, Chelsea had a clear identity: win at all costs. Managers like Mourinho, Antonio Conte, Ancelotti, and Tuchel were all hired for their winning ways. Abramovich brought in players like Drogba, Hazard, Makelele, and Kante. These were established players going into their prime years. The club and Abramovich had clear standards and a winning culture. In those 19 years of Abramovich, Chelsea spent close to £2.1 billion and had a net spend of £1.05 billion. Blueco and Boehly have already spent £1.66 billion in 3 years alone. Roman's spending was targeted. Buy only when you needed to. Boehly's approach is like throwing clay on the wall and hoping it sticks. Abramovich had 21 trophies to show after his time at the bridge. He went through 13 managers, spent millions firing the same managers who brought success. But in the end, Abramovich saw success. At this particular point, Chelsea is a far cry from its golden era. One can only wonder, what will Bluco and Boehly have to show at the end of it all?